Welcome to episode 53 of the 24-Hour Hustle Show, and today we got special guest, Tammy Thompson. Welcome to the 24-Hour Hustle Show. I'm your host, Anthony Freeze, and this is the show where we get the opportunity to sit down with amazing guests so we can hear their stories, their struggle, and also their success. If this is the very first time you are finding out about us, definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the bell so that you can get notified every single time I post. But today we got special guest Tammy Thompson on the show. Heard a lot about the things that you're doing. You actually got nominated from other people that have been on the show, and then you also just came across my path as well, sending me a message, and we got a chance to sit down, talk, and I'm glad we got an opportunity to do that. So I'm glad to get you on the show, explain some of the things that you're doing, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here because I've been watching you, and a lot of the guests that you've had on are people that I've admired from afar and up close. Some of them are friends of mine. So I've just been like, oh, this is awesome what he's doing. I'm really interested in how media tells stories and helps people have a platform to talk about their work and their mission. So I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to have you on. So for people that may not know who you are yet, kind of give us your name, your background, and all the amazing things that you're doing right now.
Yeah, so my name is Tammy Thompson. Folks on Facebook might know me as Halima Tammy Thompson. That's my Islamic name. Where do I start? Right, it's a lot.
We can start anywhere you want. Yeah.
So first, I'll start with my exciting work as a consultant, educating people about financial education and even more specifically the psychology of poverty and how people's experiences in poverty and their trauma, right, is dictating their financial decision making. I thought that was really, really important to study. Right, I've been studying this for a long time, starting with myself. Right, I come from generational poverty. I've spent the majority of my life living in poverty and surviving poverty and raising my family in poverty. And my career path led me to start really oddly, this is how I know how God is really interesting, led me to start educating other people about how to manage their finances and budgeting and saving and credit and even helping people become first-time homeowners. And that's been pretty much the majority of the work that I've done professionally. And what was really crazy is while all that was happening, my financial life was falling apart. Right? I was making some of the mistakes that I educate other people about on a daily basis. And so it was like this contradiction for me. It was like, okay, it's not that I don't understand these principles and I don't understand how money works. So why am I still making these mistakes? And then I started doing, some self-evaluation and self-assessment and thinking about the why of a lot of decisions I was making, and not just financially, right? And it led back to a lot of my experiences growing up in poverty and a lot of the memories and trauma that had maintained itself that I thought that, I was over that or I had forgotten about that. But when I really started trying to put this picture together and really assessing my finances and what was dictating my decisions, it all went back to my experiences living in poverty.
Absolutely, and that's an important topic to be able to talk about because I know it's something that some people feel uncomfortable and feel unsecure to talk about. But it is also one of the things that we all want to be good at. We all want to be good in our finances, but sometimes some of us go through some challenges or struggles that stop us from getting to that good or great place with our finance. So for you to be able to talk about this topic and this subject is definitely very important for those that have this mindset of poverty, and that's what it all is at the end of the day. It's just a mindset that they feel like they can't do better.
Yeah.
But in actuality, they can, and there's ways to maneuver to get them to that better place. So before we actually dig deep into that, tell us a little bit about your story and who you are and where you're from and how you got to this point of wanting to be inspired to talk about this.
Okay, great. So I'll start with how I ended up here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So I was born. I'm not afraid to tell people I'm old. I'll be 50 years old.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I think I might be the only woman who's ever been really excited that I'm turning 50 this year. So
ain't nothing wrong with that. That's a blessing.
Yeah,
that is
like
a blessing.
A 50 party all year leading up to my birthday this year.
Okay.
But we moved here in August of 1978.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been, about 41 years ago that we moved here from Bluefield, West Virginia. I grew up in a little coal mining town where practically everybody was poor. We didn't know we were poor because life was good in Bluefield from a child's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But what we didn't know was going on is my dad, was a coal miner, and the mines had started to close down and work was getting scarce. And we were living with my mom's mom, my grandmother, and for me that was heaven. But as an adult now, I can understand that might not have been so great for my dad.
Uh-huh.
And he was looking for some changes. He wanted to get his family to a better place and do some things differently. And he had a cousin that lived here in Pittsburgh, and he said, "Hey, cuz, if you come up to Pittsburgh, I can get you a job in the steel mills."
Mm-hmm.
And so we packed up our little car, and my mom, my dad, my brother, and a dog, and everything that we could fit in a car, and we made the trek to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Got here in the summer of 78, and our car broke down right in smack dab in the middle of the Boulevard of the Allies.
Oh.
And right back in those days, it was there were no zoned police stations. It was a public safety building, and we broke down almost directly in front of the public safety building.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, coming from a small town, thought, well, this is a safe place to break down. And pre-cell phone, my dad waited until the next day and went and found a pay phone and talked to his cousin, and unfortunately found out that job that he came here for wasn't here. And we started our time in Pittsburgh homeless. We lived in our car for almost a month while my dad and my mom took turns going out looking for work. And eventually, the police and Children and Youth Services came and took me and my brother away to a group home,
Mm-hmm.
and until my mom and dad could find housing, and that was the beginning of really understanding trauma and understanding, how money impacts family security. For me, that was my first experience with that, and it progressed, My mom and dad didn't survive. Their marriage didn't survive after that. There was a lot of resentment and a lot of stuff that came with that, and they were divorced a year later. So it was my mom and me and my brother living in Arlington Heights. My mom's a single mom from a little town in West Virginia, all by herself. Didn't know anybody, no support system, and it was rough. It was rough. There were plenty of days of who's going to eat today, and most of the time it was my mom not eating, and several periods where my brother, the whole family, we went days sometimes without food. And so that sort of led to, that was one of the first things that I realized as an adult, of how those types of experiences can dictate how you feel about money and budgeting today. Because one of my biggest areas of mistake was the grocery store and food, and how much food I was buying, and trying to figure out, why did I need to have this overabundance of food in my house at all times? Now, I ended up having 5 children. So, when all my kids were home, it made sense, of course. Well, you can get away with that kind of justification when you have a house full of kids. But, as they got older and started moving out and I was still doing it, I knew something's wrong, right? There's this compulsion that I have in the grocery store. Like when I go in, it's like you forget everything. And it was taking me, out of budget sometimes up to $1,000 a month.
Oh.
Right. So not like a little bit of overspending, but a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I was like, okay, you got to figure this out. Like this is crazy. What is your thing in the grocery store? And I immediately had a memory of, we spent 4 days in this house with nothing but a can of generic diced carrots.
Mm-hmm.
And those types of memories and how food insecurity is such a strong trauma for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people who aren't talking about it,
right?
Because we've normalized it. If this is your life, you just learn some things. Hey, this is just how it is. And there's a lot of things around poverty and folks who escape poverty, that we've squashed down a lot of this trauma, but it is still coming out in how we spend our money. So once I started really understanding that these things are real and it's not just impacting me, it was impacting many of the clients that were coming to me, being able to educate them and teach them that this is what this is, and seeing the light bulb go off, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. These are the programs I want to build, and that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 15, 20 years.
Absolutely. And that completely makes sense on why that inspired you and to pursue this path and want to speak about poverty and to help people get out of that mindset and to help them improve and to be able to get them in a point where they have some financial stability and also being able to get them to the point where they're homeowners and improving their credit, because all these things are important things that help people live the lifestyles that they want. Sometimes they live, the lifestyle, at least they try to, below the income that they have, but we got to figure out a way to help you either budget better or work with you to get better income in, or just to get your credit better. But those are definitely important things and topics that you talk about, and I'm glad that you do. So tell us, whenever you got to the point of starting your own consulting business, what was maybe for you, what was maybe one of the biggest challenges or hurdles that you faced in the beginning phase of getting this started, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so the first challenge was I was broke.
Okay.
That was number one. I actually started my business out of necessity. I had gotten fired from a job that I thought, I was going to be at.
I completely relate to that.
And I was like, whoa, I was caught off guard, but happy. It was at the same time, I was like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to do this work the way that I know it needs to be done. Because sometimes, and honestly, that's what catapulted me into wanting to do this consulting business, because I was working for an organization that was offering financial education to our demographic, and predominantly low-income families that didn't have a clue about what low-income families were really dealing with. And so we were constantly butting heads about the approach that needed to be taken for how to really get families to understand this information. So it was really a blessing to get fired. I really saw it as a blessing. I was free to be able to develop programs and facilitate this information the way I know it needs to be facilitated. And that's sort of how we got started, And so I started going out, knocking on doors, talking to other nonprofit organizations that I knew were either offering financial education or that wanted to. And I was educating them about this concept of the psychology of poverty and how we have to offer financial education differently to our people.
Absolutely. Which brings up, you starting actually your documentary, which I definitely want to dig into right now and talk about, because I got a chance to see it earlier this week. I was very impressed. It's shot well. The stories are really good. It's a lot of things that I can relate to as well. And then also some things that were a little bit different as well, that were outside of my perspective, but I was able to gain a new perspective on things that I might not have understand previously, because some of the things that some of the ladies did go through in that documentary, I didn't necessarily go through as a child or growing up, but to be able to at least understand and be able to see their perspective on how they've been able to get to this point or how their mindset works in regards to poverty was very interesting. And I feel like I learned a lot from it. So Getting into that, what inspired you to start up this documentary? Because, like I said, I feel like it was very powerful, very inspiring, and it could do a lot of good. But what was the things that got the wheels turning in your mind to say, I want to do a documentary?
Yeah, so the documentary is We Wear the Mask, the hidden face of poverty. And the idea came, honestly, from being frustrated from doing this work, being frustrated with constantly trying to tell the story about how hard people are working, specifically in this case, women, single moms who are working really, really hard to elevate themselves and their families to the next level. And it's like nobody's hearing them, right? There's this narrative that people are lazy and they're just not working hard enough and they're not educated and they put themselves in this position and all of this horrible narrative that is completely untrue in probably 90% of the cases that I see. And I woke up one morning in January of 2017 and was literally trying to force myself out of the bed to get to work, and I was like, I want to make a movie. And it literally just came to me, in my head, like, I want to make a movie. And I was like shocked, like, where'd that come from? Because I don't have any media background. I don't have any education around cinematography or anything like that. But I do understand the power of storytelling. And I have been, doing a lot of public speaking and facilitating workshops, trainings for other nonprofits, trying to get people to understand this concept of the psychology of poverty. And, sometimes I could just see that it was just falling on deaf ears and nobody was truly understanding what I was saying. And so I said, if people see it, if people can actually relate to some people who are going through these things, and maybe they'll understand a bit better. And the primary goal, for this film was reducing the stigma around poverty, reducing the stigma, trying to, just change the narrative and get people to see how hard folks are really working and how there's these remnants of trauma that stay with people even when they're long past the financial aspect of poverty, because that was huge for me. So even myself, so I'm not financially poor anymore, but there's still a mental space that I have. There's still some areas in my heart and in my mind and my soul that I still carry the trauma of poverty, right? And I have to fight through it every single day. And what I want people to understand is poverty is not just about money, right? It becomes, a part of a person's mental space. It becomes part of their psyche. And no matter how far away you get from it financially, or you build a career or a business, there are pieces of that trauma that stay with you. And I need people to understand that, because it is impacting us as a people, it's impacting our communities, it's impacting how we interact with each other, it's impacting our ability to go back and lift a hand and reach a hand out to people who need us to bring them along. It's impacting all of those things. So I really wanted people to see, real people and people locally. They're all Pittsburgh women in that film. And, just having people see shots of Pittsburgh and, people that they may run across in their dealings every day in the city, and really connect, like, okay, we've got work to do. We've got work to do to change this narrative and help as many people as we can overcome.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I feel like impacted me the most is just being able to visually see how hard some of these ladies are working. And I'm pretty sure there's multiple stories out there that there's similar stories out there of other people just like that.
Absolutely.
So I feel like other people that get a chance to see this film will be able to relate to it and also be inspired by it to make some change, especially with their mindset. Because one of the things that I thought was interesting is with each women, they both have the mindset of like maybe some poverty aspects, and then you show their different situations as well. So I thought that was interesting as well. How did you come across these three ladies specifically and decided to put them into the film?
Yeah, so I did a call, a casting call on my Facebook page, actually. All of the pieces for this film really just fell together perfectly. It was really strange, and I can tell you, as we're in pre-production for the second film, it hasn't been that easy.
Okay.
So I know that this was really just something that God wanted me to do because it just happened too easy. I put a call out on my Facebook page, literally asking, was there any women, particularly women, were there any women who wanted to share their poverty experience? And I thought we'd get a few, but we got over 50 women who were like, yes, I have a story. I want to tell it. And then that just made it really clear to me. People want to tell their stories. They need a platform to tell their stories because the narrative that's been created for us is so off base that I think people are just like, I need to tell my story. And we wanted to give people that opportunity. So we, out of maybe the 50 or so, I reached out to maybe 25 of them and invited them in and just sort of interviewed them, just did these group interviews and had my co-producer and my cinematographer with me, just trying to get a feel for whose story would resonate the best on screen and how would people relate to them. And we narrowed it down to those three, and it was very, very difficult to do that. It was also difficult to get people, people said they wanted to share, but people, when they found out the scale of what we were doing, were not always, all of them weren't ready to be that
for that
visible
scale.
and to have somebody following them around and really getting a really good insight into the lives of these women. So we got really lucky. We got these three who were is a very diverse range of women, different ages, different race, different, station in life currently. It was just a really perfect mix of women from my perspective. I'm really proud of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things that I was probably impressed with the most, the level of professionalism as far as making it a documentary and being able to follow these ladies around and to the different places that you were able to follow them. I think the one lady that I seen, when she was on the bus and at her job at, I don't want to give too much away, but at the restaurant and how she works and then, how she gets around downtown and then the other lady working in her job, she has a little bit of a better situation and she's with her son and things like that. And then the third woman, lady, just her situation and how she's living inside of her house, and you get to actually see how they're living and the way, and you can tell they're also comfortable with it as well. It doesn't feel like, oh my goodness, there's a camera on me. It felt very natural. Whenever you're watching their lives play out, and I think it's very well done. And you say you're coming out with another one, so I'm definitely looking forward to the second one. So you say that one is in production right now?
Yeah, so we're in pre-production for the second film. And this film, because of my work in the nonprofit sector and the focus of my work, which is really anti-poverty and helping people move out of poverty, in this world, I just noticed that there's so much attention, resources, money, time being spent on single women and children, which is a big problem. We have 80% of single moms now living below the poverty guidelines in Allegheny County. That's 80%. That's a huge number. And it's a big issue. But for me, I'm results oriented. Like, if we're going to talk about an issue, I want to talk about how we can really impact it and how can we fix it? How can we at least play a part in fixing it? And so having this conversation about single moms and children, I felt like, well, they didn't become single moms and children on their own. Like, where's the dad? Let's talk about fatherhood. Let's talk about fatherhood in the African American community. And let's not talk about it from the perspective, again, around stereotypes, right? There's a stereotype that black men are not fathers, and I know that's not true. I know a lot of really great dads, men who are really, involved and making a difference in their communities. And I wanted to, I want to create this film to talk about, first of all, let's reverse the stigma. But let's also talk about, there are plenty of absent fathers. And let's talk about the political, the systems, the policies, all those things that also play a part in why we have this big reduction in male figures and fathers in our communities, right? It's all mass incarceration and all of these things that play a part in why our men are not fathering to the level that we would love them to be. It's not always because a man doesn't want to be a dad. There are lots of other factors that are playing a part. So we want to drill down on that. We want to talk about the relationship between women and men. We want to talk about how those relationships are impacting our children and how all of those things collectively are impacting our communities. So we've met with some dads, some people who run father programs, who got together, and we recorded actually a session with them, an interview session with them. And it's powerful. It's powerful because they're open, they're vulnerable, and I think this is going to be an incredible film. So we're raising money, which is the hard part. Anybody who want to help, let me know. But it's very expensive to, create a film of the level that we want to create it. We want it to be beautiful. We want it to be, detailed and sincere. So we want to do it right, and it costs money to do it right. So that's where we are right now, is in the fundraising stages.
Absolutely. And based off what I've seen off of We Wear the Mask, I completely believe in the vision, and it totally makes sense that you want to be able to raise money to be able to make it right.
That's right.
And I feel like that's exactly what you've done with We Wear the Mask. Like I said, I was impressed. Once I hit play and I got into the first couple minutes, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be able to get through this. Because it's really well done, and I encourage any and everybody that watches this episode to watch that documentary. So speaking of which, is that available right now?
Well, I'm glad you asked.
All right.
So we are working on distribution right now. We just had a conversation with some folks at PBS. We're working on trying to secure a distribution deal. So hopefully it'll be a lot more. Right now it is not open to the public as we're working on this distribution. It will be. I am going to speak it out there. It is going to be available for distribution, I hope, by the end of this year.
Okay.
And in the meantime, we've been, securing screenings with most of our major universities here and in other parts of the country. We offer it to local organizations. Anybody who wants to license it to screen for their organizational training or just want to see it. We had quite a few screenings in 2018, and I'm booking for 2019 right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think PBS would be a great platform to put it on it because they're almost known for a lot of locally documentaries in Pittsburgh. So I think that would be a great platform to put it on, and I hope it all goes well because I would love to see it on there and be able to have other people be able to see it as well. That would be a great place for people to be able to see it.
Yeah, we're excited about that.
Absolutely. So, in addition to that, are you continuing to do any more speaking engagements? What else does the future hold? Because one of the things that you also mentioned is that you have and are building your own media company, which is T3 Media. So what are some more of the bigger plans that you have or ideas that you have for the future?
Yeah, so this year I am releasing 2 books. I know.
Killing it. Two books, documentary in the works?
Yes, one is coming out probably in the next 6 weeks or so. It's actually a spending log.
Okay.
So anybody who's worked with me knows that I am constantly encouraging people to start budgeting and saving, right? Most people are coming like, can you help me fix my credit? Can you help me buy a house? And I'm like, don't worry about that. Let's focus on the basics first, right? Budgeting and saving. And the reality is a lot of us don't know how to get started on developing a sound budget. The spending log is something I tell anybody who works with me, you have to do that first. And that is literally just an accounting of all of your spending every single day. Do it for at least 30 days. And so I've been preaching this for years, and this year we are actually going to release a branded spending log.
Nice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's hopefully it's pretty enough that people will want to use it and actually understand. There's some tips in there that talk about the emotions that people are going to feel as they're doing this thing. And we're just really excited. So that is coming out, and then I'm writing a book about the experience that I shared with you guys, the 4 days without food. That book is entitled One Can of Carrots. It's just talking about that 4 days with my family and what that felt like and how that impacted me psychologically and emotionally and financially. So that's probably going to come out closer to the end of this year. I'm working on it now. It's a tough book to write because there's a lot of emotions around it. I've been actually trying to write that book for 10 years.
Wow.
And I decided year 50 is the year that book is coming out. So I'm working on that.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to all that coming out.
Thank you.
So for people that, are interested in all the things that you got the opportunity to talk about, where is the best place for people to connect or contact you?
Yeah, so I have a website. My website is www.tammythompson.com. That's really the best way to get me. Folks, you can reach out to me on my Facebook, Tammy Thompson, Halima Tammy Thompson, or my Instagram, Tammy T. Thompson.
Awesome. Well, good stuff. And then lastly, as we get closer to wrapping up, what is a 24-hour challenge that you would propose to the audience that they can actually take action on in the next 24 hours?
Yeah, this is important, right?
Yes.
This is the thing. So a lot of us talk about, it's easy to look at other people and point out what they should be doing, and they shouldn't be doing that, and they shouldn't have that. What I want to encourage people to do is, think about what you're saying when you're saying it. Think about the judgment, right? Think about how we are judging people's lives when in most cases we know absolutely nothing about how they got there. I want to encourage people to, in place of that judgment, to look at how can I reach out to this person and offer them something, either a word of encouragement, an assisting mindset. How can I assist this person to get to the next level? What do I have to offer personally? And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about what special talent, skill, how much love do you have in your heart? Are you willing to reach back and give to somebody who could have potentially been in the exact same situation you were in, probably very recently? Reach back and just love on each other. Like, I really need us, and I'm, just going to be candid here. I'm talking about the Black community, right? That's who we represent. That's who I represent. I need us to do better with being more loving and gentle and nurturing with each other. And I know it's tough because we got our own stuff, but we have got to do that. We've got to stop being so judgmental with each other and really love each other, Warren.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in other words, in the next 24 hours, if you happen to feel any judgment or feel some type of way towards someone, show that love towards them and share a story with us and what you did in that moment when you started to feel that way. What did you do to show compassion or love towards someone else? I think that is an awesome challenge for sure, because I know throughout the day, we see things and we automatically go towards judging them, maybe based on the way they look or dressed, and we automatically come up with our own thought process or opinions on how they may be living. But instead of going that route, what can we reverse that and start to think, what, hold on, let me pump the brakes.
That's right.
And think, maybe, it's not as what I think it is.
That's right.
And if you get the opportunity to connect with that person or talk to that person, maybe, open up a door or whatever kind of kindness or love that you can show that person instead of automatically going to judge someone.
Absolutely.
So as we're wrapping up, any closing words that you may have as far as, business or anything that you want to talk about, or any impactful words that you want to leave with us?
I just want to talk about you for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to talk about this show, and I want to talk about how important and powerful what you're doing is, right? This is huge, what you're doing. I'm putting my little nonprofit hat on for a second. So I am the director of Circles Greater Pittsburgh, which is a local nonprofit fighting poverty. But what I'm seeing specifically in our entrepreneurship program is there's a lot of us that are entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
that have an entrepreneurial spirit, that, want more. I'm seeing hunger, and I love the hunger and the hustle that I'm seeing in people. And you are the epitome of that, right? This staying hungry, this hungry hustle. I love it, and I love that not only you didn't covet that for yourself, you've offered a platform for other people and entrepreneurs to come and talk about how hard they're working, and it's elevating us. It elevates us because there are people who are watching what you do, and there are people who are watching what your guests do, and it's empowering them to take the first step to reach those entrepreneurial goals. So I just want to talk about that for a second. Thank you for the platform. We appreciate it. I love watching your show. And I would love to see many, many more. And if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know.
Thank you. I truly appreciate that. I appreciate you, and that truly hits my heart for sure. You about to get me a little emotional here, but no. But in all seriousness, I definitely truly appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on to the show, being able to share, and I look forward to seeing how things develop and going in the future and seeing many more great things happening in the future. So I definitely appreciate it. Absolutely. So now that we know what Tammy does with her 24 hours, definitely make sure you contact her whenever that documentary also comes out as well. Definitely make sure you check it out. Yes. If you have any questions or concerns for either myself or Tammy, definitely leave them in the comments down below. But with that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the next episode.
All right.